Do you think a creative pursuit like this is a key to a fulfilled life?
I'm much more fulfilled now than I've ever been in life, for sure. I mean, having wonderful kids and a wife and all that stuff is great, but professionally, just who I am, I'm much more fulfilled. Like, I feel like I found it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people search a long time to kind of find their thing. I mean, it took me years and years and years, so I think I hold it really precious, and I'm really like, because it was work to get to that point. You know, it was a rocky road. It was, you know, so I am able to take all those experiences from years and years, and I think that's why I can make so obsessively, because I've got all that stuff that's just been in me for years, and it's just all ready to come out.
Right.
You know, the timing was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me. I'm glad it happened when it did. I'm glad that I never went to art school. And there's nothing against art school, but you know who I am, the person that just kind of likes to say, "I'm just going to do this my way and see what happens."
Yeah, you did do it very your way.
Yeah,
and I think if you tried to do it anybody else's way, you might not have the same fulfillment from it.
Right, and one of the things I get is feedback. A lot of the positive feedback I get is that my stuff's really authentic, and you know, that's something I always value in music, in people, in art. Is something that to me feels like real.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how to describe that. I think it's a feeling that I get. You know, with you know, it's people that seem to be doing it for the love of doing it. So yeah, I've always been drawn to that.
All right, so we're going to pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the listeners are going to be really interested in your creative process and how you come up with your ideas, because as you've touched on, you create so much art. So much. How can you possibly come up with, like, how many sketches do you do per day?
I have a lot. It depends on the day, but you know, I've always got kind of intricate sketches going and books going.
Yeah.
I mean, I just finished one of those big notebooks in, you know, like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I started another one.
And you're working on your canvas and your big painting.
It's in January. It's whatever. I've done 6 big paintings this month already as well.
It's incredible.
Yes.
And so you constantly have these ideas and this, and just this creativity. Where do you think it comes from for you?
I have this thing where I can see, my studio, I don't know who I'm looking to sometimes.
You can look at me and then, yeah.
You know, my studio floor is a disaster, and it's like that way for a reason. When I say disaster, it's like cut up old canvases that I don't like, things that I know I'm going to use someday but haven't for a while. And so some of my paintings, like, they start off in different ways. Some of my paintings start off like that, where I'll see something on the floor and I'll say, well, that looks like the head of the frog one I did. Like, that looks like a really weird head of a frog. So, you know, I'll just put that down, and then things will start to come together after that. You know, once I have that main idea, then things just come together. So a lot of times it's seeing a shape on the floor and picking that up. Another thing that I like to do is just start painting randomly with no real idea of what I'm doing, and I'll just start laying down paint until I see something.
Yeah.
Until I see an eye here or a tooth there, and a lot of times I can see my painting in this kind of this mess. If that makes sense. Like, I'll just start making stuff until something comes to me.
And when that something comes, is it the next step or is it the full picture?
That's a good question. Usually just the next step. But once I get that next step in, full picture starts happening.
Does the full picture, like, is it, all right, this step and this step, and you kind of arrive to it through a series of doors? Or is there like, oh, you get that first spark,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I have an idea.
Sometimes the really exciting ones, I mean, there's some that you can do in a day just because like everything goes well. But then there's some that are a real challenge where you see something first and you think it's going to be great, and then you're just blank for a while and nothing comes to you. So I just set those aside because, like we talked about, I know that there's going to come a day when that's going to be something that I use and is useful for me.
Right.
Another way I make art, another way I create is I do just get weird. I use things from my life. Like you'll see a lot of right now because my mouth is so messed up from going to the dentist so much. You'll see a lot of like weird teeth things. From my life, you'll see a lot of weird dog creatures and cat creatures because Nellie is around me 24/7.
And like we saw, the cats are always looming, like that,
always
that weirdo right
like
there.
that, just watching, seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, I still draw on some of my stress and anxiety from when I was working as a counselor. So I draw from life history, you know, from experience. I draw from maybe a book that I'm listening to every once in a while. But mostly, it just comes. I just get things in my head.
Yeah.
Not quite sure where they all come from.
They just appear.
They just appear, and once I start drawing something, I mostly go into drawings not knowing what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And then I just allow it to kind of happen.
I think that's really cool.
It is really fun. Yeah.
I know, like, for me, when I want to write something, I sometimes don't know what I want the full thing to be before I start.
Right.
But I need to, like, craft an introduction or the first sentence, and then it flows. Kind of like we were saying with your, like, you open one door, then the next.
And then little pieces start falling together.
Right. I think a lot of times, especially in, like, a public school system, there's pressure to have the idea ready and then build it from there. Like have the end result be at nothing and work towards that end result instead of allowing for your creative process to flow where you can pivot and make adjustments.
Yeah, and make mistakes.
Right.
And I mean, I have tried in the past to like have a set idea from what I want something to look like.
Yeah.
And they usually are either kind of boring because it's kind of formulaic where I know, and they're more boring than my other ones, and they're less, I don't know, they're missing something, and they never turn out like I want them to in the end.
Yeah.
Anyways, so like ideas beforehand usually don't work for me.
Yeah.
No matter how bad, I kind of try. Creative process, you know, I like to have a couple going at the same time a lot of times, you know, like a drawing here, and sometimes my drawings will lead to ideas for bigger things. You know, I need to go to more museums, and I often get ideas from there. I don't know what I'm missing about my creative process.
You just finished watching a clip from the Grateful Podcast with me, your host, Jack Wagoner. If you enjoyed it, check out the full-length episode right here, or subscribe to the channel for more podcast episodes and videos like this in the future by clicking right here. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay grateful.